One more video on, or maybe this is the first video you'll see, I don't know. So this is a video on how to do research in preparation for WAMUNC. So how to do research. Let's talk about this. Being a STEM student, you probably have a lot of experience with research, which is great. But Model UN research is a little bit specific and perhaps a bit different from research that you're used to, so I thought this would be a nice thing to go through with you guys. So, basically, you want to find, like they were talking about, relevant and correct information that will help you in your committee. So, first, research the committee you will be serving on, whether it be, the Social, Humanitarian, and Cultural Committee, or whatever committee it is. Just kind of understand what issues your committee deals with, what powers your body has, what kind of aspects of topics the committee deals with. So, for example, like it's noting here, if you're in the Social, Humanitarian, and Cultural Committee, you can't do sanctions. You can't really implement sanctions. You can't deploy troops. So, obviously, don't do those things. So, you can be aware of, like they said, the powers and limitations of your committee, and also what its objectives are and what its stated goals are, what it tries to do, all of that. And yeah, then you can move on to the bigger part of your research. So if you're really familiar with your country and your topic, it'll help you in writing your position paper, and it'll also help you at the conference in terms of speaking, in terms of determining your alliances, in terms of all of that. And like they note here, don't spend too much time on petty details. Once again, especially in GA, you're not going to get a crazy amount of time to talk, so you're not going to get the ability to say every detail, but it's good to know very important information and be able to use it effectively. So you want to research your topic, your country's position on the topic. Those are both really important things. So the topic. Did not mean to highlight that whole thing. The topic. There we go. You want to have a good understanding of your topic, whether it be, female health rights, whether it be, a refugee crisis, whether it be a particular pandemic. Usually they're a little bit more specific, like Syrian refugee crisis, or this pandemic, or whatever it is. Whatever the issue is, be familiar with it. Understand its history, how it came to be, who are the main people involved in the thing happening, and what's the current situation. So look at your background guide. Your background guide is your best friend. It has, honestly, if you really needed to, like if you only could read one document and go into committee, it would be your background guide. Obviously, do a lot more than that, but it does give you, like it says here, a good general overview and highlights what your chair is interested in with regards to the topic, where he or she might want to see the committee go, and where he or she is going to direct the committee, okay? And therefore, this is what's going to be discussed at the conference, like what I just said. And the background guide has basically all the information about your topic that the chair feels you need to know in order to be a successful committee member. Yes, you can go above and beyond and do a crazy amount more research. I mean, do more research beyond your background guide. It's very important, especially when it comes to research on how your country specifically feels about an issue. That's when you really want to go, especially and dig outside of your, background guide. But your background guide is a very good resource that should not be underestimated. So look at past UN action regarding that particular issue. So don't read every resolution, but know the general position the United Nations has taken on the topic. So also, have an idea of what programs the UN has already implemented regarding the issue, other bodies or organizations of the UN that, might be equipped to specifically address the problem, and therefore kind of know what has worked and what hasn't worked when it comes to a particular issue. So that's important. So another thing is, pay attention to the news on the topic. Maybe look at BBC, Al Jazeera, Reuters, Google, like Google's news section is a section that has a lot of news from a lot of different news sources. So that's also helpful if you want to get a little bit of diversity in news with that. You can see articles from a lot of different news organizations. So, that's kind of helpful, especially with major crises that are happening right now. Know the possible biases. Also, the websites of your specific country, so the country's websites, looking up the views of prominent politicians in your country, looking up, what your country has done in the past in the UN on certain topics, looking up news articles about what UN positions your country has taken. That type of stuff is also very useful because you have an idea of what your country thinks already and how they feel about the issue. Also really look at, whatever the issue is. Like, let's say the issue is food security. What has your country personally done in order to address its own issues of food security, and what aspects of it might it suggest to maybe other countries in order to help them, or what has not been working in their country, or what does their country need that they want to say, this is a big issue. Our country, if we had this thing, then stuff would be so much better, or whatever it might be, to propose that kind of stuff, or what has worked and what has not worked in your country. That's an important thing. Other publications, The Economist, Foreign Affairs, no need to go too crazy with all of this. It's good to maybe be a little bit more specific to your topic, but those are some resources. Like I was saying, your country, very important. Understand, your country's population, size of the military, languages, just to have an idea of, what your country is about. This can be a very nice experience because, oftentimes being where we are, we don't sometimes know so much about other countries, especially countries that are a little bit, smaller, like Djibouti, Kiribati, countries like that, are, maybe we don't really know very much about them beyond their names even. So it's important to really have an understanding of them, and this can be an enlightening experience. And then kind of these factors do shape your policy. Like, for example, if you're a very small country that has a very large military, you're not going to really maybe be in favor of, recommendations that suggest military scale downs in countries like yours. If you value your military very strongly as a government. Once again, it's also really important to hold the views of the government of that country. Like, there are some countries maybe where the people don't really agree with the government very much, but it is the government who is sending a delegate to the UN, so you will be representing the governmental views of your country. So that's another important thing to note. The CIA World Factbook is great. I used that to look up my country back in the day, and it's very useful because, and also, country data published by the World Bank, so you can have kind of a big picture view of what your country is about, and then your country's position on the topics. How is my country related to the issue? What related actions have we taken in the past? What course of action are we trying to pursue right now? You've got to know that stuff. That's extremely important. That's the best thing. Like, if you needed to know, one thing, that's like the thing you need to know. So the country's website, embassy website, all of that. Your country's past votes on relevant UN resolutions, policy stances that have been taken by the nation itself. Like, if you look at the nations, the laws that they've passed and things like that, even if they didn't spell it out or release a press statement or something, you can also suggest that, the nation believes in that policy, or the government supports that policy if it passed in the government there in that nation. So, also, once again, you gotta also keep in mind, what's the source? If you're looking at Qatar's government website and they're talking about how they want to improve foreign workers' rights, not really doing that. I mean, they aren't really, because their economy is based on, in some ways, depriving foreign workers of their rights. So do they really want to take too much action towards that? Corruption, all that? Probably not. That's probably just something that they say for the heck of it, just to get people off their backs. But then again, maybe I'm not cutting Qatar, the benefit of the doubt here. But what I'm saying is that it's critical to understand that, people don't say what they mean or mean what they say sometimes. So then, let's see. So promote. So that's the thing. Promote the policy that your assigned country states. So say, like, if you're North Korea and you believe in promoting democracy, because North Koreans sometimes, will claim that they support this. We support blah blah blah, and like we support this. But then vote in line with what your country actually supports. Or Qatar might be like, workers' rights are very critical, and we'll do what we can to ensure them. But don't actually vote for something that prohibits, businesses from, cheating workers of wages. Like, don't vote for that, because then that would harm your economy, maybe. Just say it and don't actually take action that goes with your words. Yeah, it's not really the best thing. It's kind of sickening, but that's just the way politics really is. So, very real life. Bit of a cynic sometimes. So, let's see. Here's the thing. That sometimes does suck. You might have a country that has nothing to do with the topic, but I argue that this is very difficult because, most of these topics are, somewhat general in the sense that, yeah, the Syrian refugee crisis might be specific to Syria, but most countries have some experience relating to a refugee crisis of some sort, or maybe have had one at some point, and thus can inject some type of an opinion on the subject of a refugee crisis. So it's not that crazy to, try to draw inferences from that. So, like it's saying here, look at other contexts. Look at opinion. You do have a bit of creative license in the sense that, it's not the actual representative from this country in the room. It's your interpretation of them in a sense. So, you can take other evidence and put it towards your character of this country. So yeah, you can find voting records for UN resolutions, which is very helpful. And you should also maybe perhaps if you can't find, at all, where your country stands on an issue. So like maybe if you're the island of Fiji, you don't really have any type of a say on the issue of desert irrigation, like that's understandable. Then find a large country you're allied with and say what's their stance. And then, probably this is what your country supports as well, just to be, in good favor with this larger power. So that's another aspect there too. Let's see. So yeah, research a topic to write a position paper, which will be very helpful for you in committee and also as part of your grade, and to come up with workable resolutions, or workable solutions to promote in the committee and include in the working paper. So that's really the goal. So if you do good research, you will have more specific, informed, in character, better, and more convincing positions, which is key, that you can articulate in committee in order to impress your chair, because they'll be like, oh wow, this kid really knows what they're talking about. And that you can also include in your working papers that, will make you a valuable asset to your bloc, the group of nations who you're working with to write a working paper, and that will, help you in that regard. So that's a very important thing, and that will help you in committee. So here are some questions that are helpful to look into. If you can answer these questions, like what's the topic, when did this issue become important, how's it changed, how does it stand, what countries are involved, what have your leaders said, etc., etc. If you can answer all of these questions, you should be in good shape. And in a sense, your position paper should touch on a lot of these aspects, but I will make another video on position papers as well that you can look at. Lastly, here are some useful resources to look into, and obviously the country websites and even newspapers from the country that you have been assigned are very helpful, because in American news sources or British news sources, sometimes you won't go into much depth when it comes to sometimes the policy positions of certain countries. But if you go onto newspapers for that country, there's a little bit more detail about particular political figures, particular situations in that country, and maybe not just how it relates to the international landscape. So this is a summary on how to do research for WAMUNC. in the next video, or honestly, I don't even know what order you're watching these in. So in another video, I'm going to make a video about, or I'm going to talk about how to write your position paper. So I hope this was helpful and that this is useful. And good luck with your research. It is a really interesting process. Give yourself a little bit of time to do it so it isn't just a giant rush at the last minute. It's more enjoyable when you have some time to really look into the issue, let the information sink in, and really understand another country's perspective and view on an issue. Because that different perspective can be very enlightening to your own views too, speaking on a more cheesy and sentimental note. So anyway, good luck guys, have fun.